And a very good evening to you, and welcome to this evening's edition of Politics 101 as we move closer to Christmas. Christmas this year falls on a weekend, so we get to do as many shows as we can on the days before Christmas. But, tomorrow and then the next day is Christmas Eve and so on. But we've got business to carry on with, even as we prepare for Christmas. I've been trying to do some little shopping myself to prepare my little pepper pot and all the other little goodies. And my God, the prices of meat. I see beef as $800 a pound and all of that stuff. Pork, of course, has gone up. The prices are really high. So it's that kind of Christmas that's going to be quite expensive. As we've been saying on this program, you don't have much, so spend wisely. Try to do as much as you can to spend your money wisely. Spend your money in your community. Try as much as possible to patronize community entrepreneurs, small entrepreneurs, regardless of race and ethnicity. Try and, let your money circulate among poor people. Let your money circulate in your community. I know that there are some things that we cannot avoid buying from the big stores, but the little money that you have, try and spend it wisely. Welcome everybody to the Thursday edition of Politics 101. We are going to be talking about a few things tonight. There have been some developments over the last 24 hours. We want to zero in on those developments. Of course, we are in the week after the election of Aubrey Norton as leader of the PNC, coming off of that Congress on the weekend. And there is a lot happening. So we'll try as much as possible to get in discussion tonight and take a few of your calls towards the end of the program. So Aubrey Norton has been elected leader of the PNC, and the Americans, the British, other political parties, organizations are welcoming the election of Mr. Norton, and every organization seems to be expressing their view of how they think Norton should proceed as leader of the PNC. That is to be understood. After all, he has been elected as leader of one of the two largest parties in our country. Notably, the Private Sector Commission, Aubrey had said that the Private Sector Commission is politically biased. We know the role played by the Private Sector Commission last year during the elections, being sort of the pit bull, if you will, for the PPP. And that Norton said that while his party, under his leadership, would be pro-business, they want to warn that the Private Sector Commission is politically biased. The private sector fired back, saying that Norton is wrong. They're not politically biased. They were defending democracy last year. And that thing about defending democracy, what in Guyana, democracy has a different meaning depending on which organization you talk to, which political operative you talk to, what democracy they were defending last year. If democracy means everyone must participate in making decisions that affect them, then Guyana is not a democracy. Guyana has been aspiring to be a democracy. Guyana has its problems with democracy and so forth. And we live in an ethnically plural society. And in ethnically plural societies, then democracy takes on a different meaning, because the majoritarian democracy in some of the homogeneous societies in the world is not the kind of democracy that works well in ethnically divided society. Because what a majoritarian democracy means in an ethnically divided society is that that ethnic group that has a majority or has a plurality wins and then governs in a way that satisfies the interests of its ethnic group. So the majoritarian democracy that we talk about, one has to question the utility of that majoritarian democracy in a society like ours. But let's get back to the reactions to Aubrey Norton. We have not heard the PPP officially yet say anything about Norton's election, but we know that the PPP did not want Aubrey Norton to be elected, that they would have preferred another candidate, largely because what drove Norton's election, and that is the fear among PNC supporters and African Guyanese in general, that there was not the kind of leadership in the last year and a half coming from the PNC that defended them against the obvious ethnic attack from the PPP. For all intents and purposes, all of the PPP's policies have in the final analysis, all of them, in the final analysis, had ethnic consequences or ethnic implications or so. And so African Guyanese obviously felt and feel that they're under attack from the PPP. And so therefore they wanted a leader who would stand up to them. And I think that was the major reason that Aubrey Norton was elected. He was elected largely to provide the kind of leadership that would respond and retaliate against the advantage taken by the PPP. That is very clear. And so the PPP didn't want Aubrey Norton to be elected. The fact of the matter is that the man is elected. The man was elected with 82% of the votes, and the slate that he fielded did very well. And so one cannot say that he doesn't have a mandate. However, the PPP has chosen, instead of welcoming Mr. Norton, they have decided that they will go on the attack against Norton. Now, remember, before Mr. Norton was elected, the de facto leader of the party was Mr. Harman, the leader of the opposition. And the PPP attitude to Mr. Harman was that they were not going to cooperate with Harman. The president refused to meet with Mr. Harman on the grounds that Mr. Harman did not accept the PPP or recognize the PPP. And they've gone over that on this program and other programs over and over and over, in the sense that there is nothing in our constitution that says that the opposition leader has to recognize the government before the government meets with the opposition leader to carry out their joint constitutional functions. So they had a certain attitude to Mr. Harmon. But I suppose the fact that under Mr. Harmon, there was not a kind of aggressive action on the part of Harmon for whatever reason. And so the PPP while they did not recognize Harmon and try to meet with him, they may have been comfortable with the Harmon government. Now, Aubrey Norton has been elected. What is the PPP's attitude? As I said, I've not seen any statement yet from the PPP welcoming Norton's election. What we have seen from the PPP are hints that they've already labeled Norton and they're going to have a certain attitude to him. And the attitude to him would be one of non-cooperation. They have already started to demonize Norton. We have seen some videos circulating from the PPP that seeks to put or paint Mr. Norton in a certain position. And it gives you a sense of how the PPP is going to respond. And it gives you a sense of what is the disposition of the PPP. And so we're going to play one of the videos that they're circulating, and then we'll talk about it on the other side.
The PNC-APNU plus AFC is relentless in its campaign of terror and intimidation. GCOM chairwoman Claudette Singh is its latest target. Aubrey Norton recently made this threat against her.
She was trusted with a job to operate independently. She has failed. And when people fail, we must do everything to see their backs.
Norton's threat isn't an isolated incident.
In whatever way you can undermine this government.
Barby's Bridge. Nobody in blocked that bridge yet.
If the PPP don't go, just come and put down. Don't down!
Norton was one of the intellectual authors of the PNC More Fire, Slow Fire campaign of arson and terror in 1997. Despite attempts to repackage himself, Aubrey Norton has not changed.
Welcome back to Politics 101. Well, there you have it. That's how the PPP is welcoming Norton. First of all, they're linking Norton to people like myself and Mark Benshop and Rickford Burke. Their relentless attack on us for holding the fourth ear on these programs against them and exposing their wicked and dictatorial form of government. They have never forgiven us for that. They have tried to jail us, putting out a wanted bulletin for Norton and accusing others of us of trying to overthrow their government. And so they're linking Norton to those of us they refer to as extremists. And then they're saying Norton was responsible for mayhem and terror in 1997 and 1998 during that protest against what the PNC saw was an illegal imposition of the PPP after the 1997 election. Now, this is what they're up to. This is what they're up to. They're beginning to drive fear among their supporters that the election of Aubrey Norton means that Indian Guyanese would be at risk. You know, every time we open our mouths on programs like these to talk about the PPP's governorship and their governance, they have accused us. They have accused us of fomenting racism and inciting racial aggression against East Indians. Nothing of the sort. As you know on this program, while I have always come to the protection and the defense of African Guyanese, I have never, ever advocated for attacks on Indian Guyanese. In fact, I've made it very clear that our anti-Indian violence is not an option. Anti-Black violence is also not an option. We have said that. Yet, in their quest to instill fear among Indian Guyanese, they give the impression that we are out to attack Indian Guyanese. And so here is what they are welcoming Aubrey Norton with. To tell Indians that Norton's election means violence. Means violence. Now this is the government that is calling itself democratic. What is democratic about a leader of an opposite party representing a large section of the population being elected, and instead of welcoming him, you are instilling fear among your supporters? They like to talk about the ERC. Shouldn't that go before the ERC? What has Norton said that gives the impression that he is going to unleash terror on Indian Guyanese? Nothing. But yet they want to put us in that prison so as to excite fear among their supporters. First of all, it's a disrespect for Indian Guyanese supporters. And this is what Amanza Walton DC was getting at when she was pointing to the fact that supporters of political parties should not be so gullible that they would allow the party to think for them. And that is the message I want to send here tonight to our Indian Guyanese brothers and sisters. I have no problems with Indian Guyanese voting for the PPP. That's their choice. I do not have any problem if they vote for the PPP for racial reasons. That's their choice. I hear other commentators say people should not vote race. I think it's nonsense. In a society where people have racial fears and racial insecurity, one has to understand that they will vote race. That is, they will equate their interests with a political party. So I don't have any problems if East Indian people vote for the PPP. What I do have a problem with is when you allow the PPP to think for you. That is what I have a problem with. I have remarked on so many occasions that during the period of the coalition, when I was critical of the coalition for some of the wrongs that I perceived that it did. Indian Guyanese loved me. I was the best African. What a wonderful person is this fellow David Hinds. I was all over the Kaieteur News and the Stabroek News, and sometimes the Guyana Times. But the minute David Hinds said at the 2020 election that despite my problems with the coalition, I am supporting the coalition and that I'm urging Guyanese to vote for the coalition. And I give my reasons. I gave my reasons. During the 5 months impasse, I refused to jump on the bandwagon charging Mr. Mingo and others with rigging elections. My argument was that elections in Guyana are always rigged. And I want to wait and see the big picture before I made a determination. And of course, I saw the big picture. There was a recount. And the recount clearly showed that there were anomalies, they call them, but there was a lot of rigging, beginning with the voters list, coming through to election day. And so that big picture said to me that it was not one side rigging the election, but that the election itself was generally rigged. And so therefore I took the position that the elections were inconclusive, that neither the coalition nor the PPP could claim to win an election that was so badly rigged. The evidence is there. And because I supported the coalition and because I refused to say that the PPP won a democratic election and that nonsense, I've become the enemy of the PPP and by extension the enemy of their supporters who are mostly Indo-Guyanese. The very people who were cheering me on and telling me how wonderful I was when I was critical of the coalition. Now that I refuse to join the PPP's bandwagon and I'm critical of their government, those same people are saying that I'm a terrorist, I'm a racist, and I should be jailed and killed and all kinds of things. That is the nature of our politics. That is the nature of our politics. If tomorrow I decide I will be one of those stupid people, and I go to Jagdio or Fanali and say, I'm ready to cross the floor and to go over to the PPP and to denounce the coalition, those very Indians who are calling me racist today will say I'm the greatest thing on earth. That is the fallacy, the nonsense that passes for political support. And that is what Amanza was talking about. That supporters are not driven by how they feel and what they see. They're driven by what the party tells them to do. They leave their brains aside and let the party think for them. The PPP leaders, when they meet me privately, they greet me quite nicely. David, how are you doing? How are you? They don't say racist, how are you doing? Because they know damn well I'm not a racist. But they're prepared to encourage their supporters to say that people like me are racist. Because that is the way to control their supporters. That is what Sister Manzo was saying. And they say she should go before the ERC and all that nonsense. So here is Aubrey Norton, elected as the leader. Whether the PPP likes it or not, they have to contend with Norton. They have to deal with him. When Orphan is ready to sit down with the leader of the PNC, it has to be Aubrey Norton. But they're prejudicing their supporters. Prejudicing their supporters by painting this man as a racist and a terrorist who is going to bring violence against East Indians. This is the party and the government that we are dealing with. This is the party and the government that wants us to think that they're democratic. Democracy means fair play. Democracy means justice. Democracy means equality. Democracy means equity. Where is the equality under the PPP? Where is the equity? Where is the fair play? Where is the justice? I cannot call a government democratic because a few people say that this government was democratically elected, although you had hundreds of people, thousands of people who voted when they're sitting in New York. When 47 boxes, there were no statutory documents. When dead people were voting, and we can go on and on and on. How can I refer to such a government as a lawfully, democratically elected government? No. That will be giving the wrong impression about the meaning of democracy. So, sisters and brothers, let's saddle up, because these people do not intend to come to the table and for us to sit down as equals in our country and try to come to a political solution. I don't mind people disagreeing with me, and I don't mind if people are disagreeing with Aubrey Norton. Of course, nothing is wrong with that. But to paint political leaders on our side in a certain way is to send a message to your community, and you're playing into stereotypes. We know the Americans call it dog whistle. They're playing into stereotypes. The angry black man. David Hinds is angry. Aubrey Norton is angry. Mark Bishop is angry. Rick Forbert is angry. That's what they're trying to say to Indian people in that video. And these angry men are going to unleash violence because black people are violent people. They're not people driven by reason. They're emotional people who are violent. That is a stereotype about black people here in Guyana and all over the world. And that's what the PPP is doing in that video. They are playing into the stereotype that they know exists among the population. And then they turn around and call other people racist. We are not racist. We have to defend ourselves against racism. We have been doing that from the cradle to the grave. Once you were born black, you have to defend yourself against stereotypes of blackness. And then people turn around and call you racist. When they are playing not the race card. A card is too small to describe what they're doing. They are playing the race horse. They are playing the race horse. Now you have to go and sit down with Norton, presumably to talk about a political solution, to talk about defending our country against global sharks who are coming for our oil. And that is how you are presenting the man to your constituency. So your constituency has a right to tell you, do not sit down with racists, do not sit down with terrorists. So you are setting the stage for non-cooperation with Aubrey Norton. Sisters and brothers, I am merely doing as I've always tried to do on this program and off this program, to explain, to go beyond and beneath and behind the pictures that they're showing you, and to tell you what the plan is. So we have to brace ourselves. We have to brace ourselves. It's no accident that they have chosen Art Benshaw, Rickford Burke, David Hinds, and to put Aubrey Norton with us there. If you notice, they dropped Sherrod now. They dropped Sherrod. And there's a reason why they dropped Sherrod. There is a reason. So we have it. Now let me go on to talk about the next thing. Dharam Lal. Minister, I think, of local government. I don't know the boy or man or whoever he is. I don't know most of them. I've never met him. But I woke up one morning and in my inbox from this Dharam Lal person was that stupid video about black pudding that they circulated. I don't know if Dharam Lal made it, but Dharam Lal sent it to my inbox. I responded to Mr. Dharam Lal. I said, good morning, Mr. Minister. I am glad you took time out to listen to me. But I would be glad if you played my entire program to your audience so they can see what I said and not the little piece you cut out and stitched together to give a certain impression. He answered, okay. Then last night, as we were on this program, Village Voice broke the news. Nigel Dharam Lal has said that the two judges from the appeal court that yesterday ruled that the appeal court has jurisdiction to hear the appeal of Chief Justice decision to throw the petition, one of the petitions from the coalition. She threw this out on technicality, as you remember, Mr. Granger didn't sign on time. And the coalition appealed, but first of all, the court had to decide whether they can hear the case. Because the PPP argued that on election matters, the High Court is the final court. So the first question was whether the appeal court could hear the case. And the appeal court took that matter up, and in a decision of 2-1, Don Gregory and Acting Chancellor Cummins ruled or voted that the court did have jurisdiction to hear the case. And one other judge, Mr. Rishi, Judge Rishi, I think Singh is his last name, I may be wrong, Prasad, but Judge Rishi, he was a dissenting vote, but the majority of the court 2-1. This Dharamlal boy then lashed out that the two judges should be removed from the court, that they should be defrocked, that they were the same two judges who ruled that 34 is the majority in a 35 and a 65 seat, and he went on hacking the court. Now, I do not have any problem with people disagreeing with the court and expressing their disagreement. I've done it on this program. You have done it in the audience. But whenever I've had lawyers on this program, and I myself, we have always said to you, you can criticize the decision, but do not disrespect the members of the court. Do not disrespect the court. And there was a reason that we were telling you all not to do that. Because when these people like Darren Lal, they come and disrespect the court, we want to be in a strong position to rebuke them. And that is why we have always said to you all, disagree with the ruling. Don't attack the Chief Justice. Don't attack the officers of the court. We have always on this program said that we don't want to develop bad habits among our followers. And there is a reason, like I said, that I took that position. And as I said, the reason was that I know that those people over there, the people, have no respect for the court. So long as the court is ruling in their favor, they will go along. As soon as the court don't rule in their favor, they will attack the members of the court. I didn't want you all to be in the same boat with Darren Lal. So those of you who disagreed with me when I was saying, do not attack Chief Justice Pilcher, Roxanne George, do not attack her. You can disagree with our decisions. You now understand why I was saying that. Because I knew it was only a time before the PPP people began to attack the person of people in the court. And they signaled which court they was unhappy with. That they were not happy with the Court of Appeal. We saw two academics from the UWI attacked the Court of Appeal, saying that the Court of Appeal is biased. And you remember we had lawyers on who said there was something suspicious about that. that the PPP wanted to target the court. And they were using these, the conclusions of these academics to consolidate their attack on the court. They don't want to make Justice Cummings the chancellor. And they're trying to whip up this thing that she is an opposition supporter. It's one of the reasons I was telling you all, don't get into that business of saying Roxanne George is PPP. Because I know what the other side was planning. So now, the thing has come out into the open. A government minister attacks two justices because they did not rule in favor of his party. That rule in favor of his party. And calling for them to be defrocked. Let me say this. Darmlal knows that you don't remove justices because they make a ruling you don't like. He knows that's not going to happen. And so the intention is not to remove the judges. What he intends with that call is to incite hatred against the judges. He knows the judges can be removed, but he is now inciting hatred against the judges. He's not inciting against the judge that ruled in the way the PPP like. He's inciting against these two black female judges. So there we go again. The subtext. Remove the judges, defrock them. That's the text. He knows that can't happen. So the subtext is to incite hatred against these judges, saying that they're political judges, they're partisan judges. Just as how they say Aubrey Norton, David Hinds, and Mark Bishop and so on, we are partisan and they're inciting hatred against us. That is what Darmlal is doing here. Let's lay it bare. The Bar Association has come out and said it's wrong. Other political parties and organizations have come out and said it's wrong. I've seen some nonsense that people have written and say, oh, Darmlal is just exercising free speech my head. What Darmlal and the PPP are doing is they are seeking to deny the rest of us our right to dissent. That any dissent against the government, when it's done by the courts, or by David Hinds and Mark Bishop and others, or by the opposition political parties, or by you, the audience, any opposition is seen as hostility to their government and aimed at overthrowing their government and should be silent. So the attack on the two justices is merely an extension on the attack on Rupert Burke and the rest of us. And to deny us the right to dissent. So any disagreement with the PPP is interpreted as aimed at bringing down the government and should be flushed out, knocked out, beaten out. That is their intention. So even the court now is not immune from the PPP's intention to snuff out dissent in Guyana. So don't give me that free speech nonsense. Don't tell me, oh, this is just a misguided statement by a little boy you don't know better. I don't buy that. These fellas know exactly what they're doing. This is not a misguided statement. Only a couple of weeks ago, another little boy make a misguided statement. Another little boy seek to use stereotypes about Black people, about Black fathers, to tell Black people that they're going to create fathers for our children. Misguided statement, no. Ramsey yesterday, today Dharamlal, tomorrow it's going to be one of them little girls and another little boy. They know what they're doing. You see, part of the job of being a minister, it seems, under the PPP government, is not to look after your ministry, but to be pit bulls. What Dharamlal did yesterday is consistent with a PPP form of governance. That is, they want to dominate our country, and any organization, any institution, any individual that disagrees with them will become an enemy of the state. So now those two judges have become enemies of the state. They should be dismissed. They should be defrocked. They tell Dharamlal take out some parts of the statement, dismiss and defrocked and so on. To fool who? To fool who? I hope they're not fooling you all. Until the PPP comes out, and rejects in word and in spirit what Dharamlal says, and censor him. You know, I don't like to call for ministers dismissal and remove, because that is not going to happen. But unless the PPP censures him in one way or the other, unless they reject what he has said, we have to hold the PPP responsible for what he said. I'm arguing he's not a one-man army. I'm arguing that Ramson, when he spoke his nonsense, he was not acting as a one-man army. These guys are carrying out the wishes of their political party and their government. And here is a man who is not an ordinary citizen. I try to advise you all ordinary citizens not to do it. But one, if ordinary citizens attack officers of the court, we may give and take. But this man is a member of the executive branch. He comes and he speaks with the power of the government behind him. Institutional power. And here is a member of one branch attacking officers of the other branch. There are three branches of government. The executive branch, which we call the government, the judicial branch, which we call the courts, and the legislative branch, which we call the Parliament or the National Assembly. They're three co-equal branches of government. Here is a member of one branch, the executive, attacking two members of the other branch. The PPP has moved further than just attacking opposition members and supporters. They are now attacking a co-equal branch of government, which did not give a decision that they like. The judicial branch is the branch of government under something called judicial review that reviews the action of the legislature, the action of the executive, to determine whether those actions are consistent with the Constitution or not. So our judicial branch, like the judicial branch of any country, has an important role to play. They are the arbiters of what is constitutional or not constitutional. Have courts made mistakes? Yes. Have our courts in Guyana made mistakes? Yes. Have them been criticized? Yes. But here is a member of one branch, the executive branch, trying to delegitimize a section of the other branch. Is one branch trying to undermine another branch, which says that the PPP wants to govern without oversight from the other branches of government. It's not going to attack the Parliament, the National Assembly, because they have a majority there. But they perceive that the appeal court is not going to be at their beck and call. And listen, Darulal, we are going to the CCJ to correct these two ladies. And note what the academic said, that the CCJ has to always correct our appeal court. What they're in fact saying is that the CCJ is their court. This is what Dharamlal is saying. The CCJ is the PPP court. And I hope people from the CCJ or associated with the CCJ are paying attention of the way in which the PPP is trying to politicize the judicial system. The academics accuse the coalition of using the courts to settle political issues. What is Dharamlal doing here now? He's calling on the CCJ to correct what he says is a political decision by the appeal court. We're up against it, sisters and brothers. We're up against it. It is clear where these people are going. Very clear. Very clear. This is not an easy struggle. That is why we have to keep at it every day. Every day. An attack on the two justices is an attack in the final analysis on the very foundations of our legal system. And this attack is not coming from some little boy in the corner of some street in Georgetown. It's coming from a minister of government. And I want our Indian brothers and sisters to begin to take note of what is happening in their name. And to ask whether that is what they voted for. I'm asking Indian people to leave the PPP. All I'm doing is asking our Indian brethren whether they are proud that the PPP is behaving in this manner in their name. In their name. It is a pathology of power, dictatorial power. The only legitimate source of wisdom is such a political structure, is the dictatorship. For such a political structure is the dictatorship. The superstructure of the society is dictatorial. The executive is a dictator. They exercise no freedom. They exercise dictatorial license. Nothing more, nothing less. The earlier we recognize that, the earlier we would be better able to craft the most appropriate and effective response to these abuses and the defilement of the term democracy. This is for my brother Lawrence, and I keep forgetting that I've got to get Lawrence Houston, who is an old, long-serving diplomat with a very good political mind. We have sparred over the years, and I've got to get him on to the panels here as one of our commentators. That section I read there just now comes from him. The term democracy. That's what they're doing. They're using the term democracy to make us, to insult us. So democracy means God. And we have the hold on democracy. So we have the hold on God. The rest of y'all are devils. If democracy is God, and we are saying that the rest of y'all don't believe in democracy, then the rest of y'all are devils. You all have to understand the play of words. You see, that's why they don't want people like myself and Mark and others. They don't want us to talk. Because we bring us here together every evening to text the scarf, as we used to say, off we eye so that we can see clearly. I can see clearly now. The rain is falling. The old timers know that song. What we are doing is helping ourselves to see clearly. We bring guests on. We have you in the audience. And together we are enlightening ourselves. I don't want that. And so they try to tell us we're all kinds of things. I don't hide. I'm a radical. Radical means getting to the roots. ROOTS. That's what radicalism means. And the kind of radical political activists that don't deal with the surface, they go to the roots. That is why radicals don't necessarily make good electoral politicians. Because when you're in the electoral politics, you got to avoid the roots, ROOTS, sometimes, because you're trying to get votes. I'm a radical because I go to the roots. I'm a militant because I think you got nothing easy in politics. I'm not against negotiations in politics, but I know negotiations, people who hold power don't call you and say, come and let's negotiate. They have to be pushed to negotiate. I know that had my parents not been radicals and militants, I would have been born on a slave plantation. I know that. And that is why I don't shy away from militant politics or radical politics. I know that the British would not have given us independence. And our people, all our people, not being radical and militant. It was the militancy of our foreparents in the 1930s, from the Bahamas and Jamaica in the north, right down to Trinidad and Guyana in the south, who engaged in uprisings that hit the final blow for our independence. They call it 1930s riots, but they were demonstrations. They were militant actions that forced the British to send commissions in the Caribbean, ostensibly to find out why those people are rising up. How you get people under colonial rule and they rise up, and you're asking, why are they rising up? Shouldn't it be obvious to you? No, but it couldn't be, because the list did not see colonialism as a bad thing. It is the colonized who saw it as a bad thing. It is not the PPP. It is not their business to see things as bad. Pull wool over eyes. We give the sugar workers 7%, just as we gave the public servants. We are a fair government. No, you are damn well not. Because the sugar workers earn a lot more than public servants. In 2014, I was reminded today by Professor Clive Thomas of the report that was done, that a cane harvester, or a cane cut as we call them, in 2014 was earning as much as $1 million per year. I'm not saying sugar workers should not earn a lot of money, don't get me wrong. But the sugar worker, for all of the 23 years of the PPP, they ensured that the wages of sugar workers kept rising for political reasons. One may argue they may not like the sugar workers for class reasons, but they know that that is what? A political base that will vote for them. And so by 2014, sugar workers were earning much more than senior public servants. And this is low-level sugar workers. And so 7% of what for sugar workers, and 7% of what for public servants. That's where the meat is. It's not the 7%, it's 7% of what? 7% of 500,000 is not the same as 7% of 1,000,000. And then having given the sugar workers 7%, you now give a lump sum to pay those sugar workers for what you call out of crop work. Meaning when the sugar is not in crop, you don't have any cane to cut, but the sugar workers get paid. As I say, this is not an attack on sugar workers, because sugar workers deserve pay, but so do public servants. And the question is, why are sugar workers treated in a relatively privileged way, and public servants are treated in an absolute unprivileged way? These are the questions we are raising. And so don't be fooled with that 7%. Agreed to with the unions. Who are the unions? God wanna see. And I wanna see a PPP unions. So it was the PPP government negotiating with itself to ensure that sugar workers get a good Christmas. And all you can do is throw one bonus to the police and the soldiers who got to protect us as we sleep at night and as we go about our business during the day. You throw a little thing to them, you call it a bonus. Give them $250,000 now. You use them, you intend to use them to beat us on the streets. You intend to use them, I understand, now to clean up Georgetown, police and soldiers. So you give them a one-man bonus to clean up your mess. Why not bring sugar workers who are, when they're out of crop, to clean up Georgetown? Sugar workers are not working when it's out of crop. Why not bring them along with the police and the soldiers and let them all together clean up Georgetown? Police and soldier must clean up Georgetown for 1 month bonus. And other workers who are out of crop, you can't bring them to help the police and soldiers clean up Georgetown. I'm not against using the military and the police to help to clean up our environment. We know Georgetown is a mess. I'm not against that, but bring some sugar workers to help too. Do not be fooled. Do not be fooled. Do not be fooled. We're going to open the phones now. We're going to take some calls. We're going to take some calls. I'm asking the question here tonight, are these chaps real? And it's a rhetorical question, which means it's a question that I already know the answer to. They're not for real, as in real good people, but they're for real in terms of what they are doing. In terms of what they're doing. 592-604-9722. 604-9722. Just call in and let's talk about these issues that I've raised there tonight. The issue of criminalizing and demonizing Aubrey Norton. The man has just been elected. The business of using one section of the workforce to clean up, and you're not asking the other section, which got more money than the police and the soldiers to clean up. And this Dharam Lal business of attacking the Court of Appeal. So please call us at 604-9. Let's talk. As citizens of our country, we ought not to allow ourselves to be led to disaster by leaders. We can respect our leaders, we can follow our leaders, but we don't have to agree with the wrong things that leaders are doing. And this goes for both sections of our society.
You got a call, Dr. Hinds.
Caller, you're on the air. Come through.
Go ahead, caller.
Yes, you're on.
Afternoon, Dr. Hinds. Yes.
Yes.
I've been listening to what you've said all the time. I've been listening to what you've been saying all the time, and you are so on target have so much disdain for the brothers that they expect everything bad to be done and everything bad to be said against black people. And those people who don't follow what they perpetuate. Now, this boy Dharamlal, if you look at it in terms of what you said earlier, what we have read, this guy seemed to have no respect for man or God. This youngster displays arrogance in every step of his work, every way possible. He believes he is the God and the end all in Guyana. He says what he wants and does what he wants, and there will be no redress because he's acting through the blessings of the cabal, the oligarchs in the PPP. Just the same way as the little Ramson and previous to them, Crybaby Priya, they all have different times when they have to hit the headline. And they do so with the blessings of Catfish Ali and Company. So what he's doing now is nothing strange. It's just that we have to be strong, stand up. Now we have Aubrey there who's going to take the mantle. You will have to get the support from Guyanese, local and in the diaspora. Change has got to come. You can't afford to take more than you're taking. It seems as if we are born to be the beast of burdens. But there comes a time when we have to relent and say, no, we cannot do this anymore. The choice was made and Aubrey became the leader of the party because too long we've been beaten, battered, and decimated in Guyana. Things have got to change. So what they're doing now is nothing inconsistent. It's in the DNA of the PPP. And if you look at that young man's face on Facebook, you see the rancor, the 100% racism in his appearance. It's a true replication of somebody who despises every other than himself and people who look like him. I hope you guys continue to do what you're doing here to expose the crap that they're carrying on with in Guyana, because this has got to stop. This has got to stop. Okay, guys, that is my little bit, and I wish you guys again all the best for this season and for the new year. Thank you so much, and you guys have a wonderful day.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, we've got to stand up. We've got to continue doing what we're doing, and you out there will have to support us who have presented ourselves as leaders or taught builders and so on in our community, because there are different types of leaders. But you all have got to support us, whether it be Aubrey Norton or David Hinds or the other brothers who are not leaders of political parties, but are leaders of our cause. We have to support them. We have to support them. You have to support us. And one of the wonderful things of a plural opposition is that we have choices within the opposition. If you don't like the PNC, you don't necessarily have to say, my only option is to stay silent or go to the PPP. There are other parties in the opposition. The Alliance for Change, the Working People's Alliance. So we've got to stay strong, because the attack is not an isolated attack. I've forgotten Priya Manichan as the other pit bull before these other two, and there are more, and they're going to come out of the woodwork. 604.
You have another caller?
Come on, caller.
Hi, good evening, Dr. Hinds.
Good evening, brother.
About an hour and a half ago, before you came up with the idea that these people are they're coordinating, they're working together, they're coming out one after each other. It was well planned. Damn Lal, or whatsoever his name is, it was a well planned by the PPP. But the PPP have these guys, Dan Lal and others, who are the pompous ones that they lose, as they said, but let loose the dogs of war. He, Priya, and that other one that was saying that he going to be a role model, a fine role model for black. Guyana, as far as I'm concerned, Guyana is in a red zone. There's no political solution there in Guyana. I cannot see any political solution there. We are in a red zone. And the only solution that is right now hitting in the air is confrontation, civil confrontation. What the PPP is going on with, there is no room for dialogue. And Guyanese will have to brace themselves. That's the reality here in Guyana. This guy, Jack Deal, got to be neutralized. Somebody has to put their foot down on him. This guy is getting out of control here in Guyana. And with him around, there will never be any peace in Guyana. He's going to go down in history of one of the most tyrant leader the Caribbean ever seen. But eyes behold, we are in a red zone. We are in a complete red zone. You take it from me, Mr. Hinds. We have to prepare ourselves. And that is my take for tonight. So thank you.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you, my brother. And I'm sure my brother there is talking about a political confrontation, because the government is pushing this situation to confrontation. It doesn't talk to the unions. It doesn't talk to the political parties of the opposition. It criminalizes union leaders. It is criminalizing Aubrey Norton, David Hinds, and other leaders. And so, where does that leave us? That is what the caller is saying. Where does that leave us? There is no intention for a dialogue. We have said that a political solution where we can sit down is the best option for our country. But as the caller is saying, they've pushed us into what he calls the red zone. They want to govern in that kind of way. And there comes a time when it is all going to disintegrate in front of their faces, because you're dealing with human beings. You're not dealing with stones and objects that don't feel and don't have brains, and you're dealing with human beings. You're dealing with human beings. And we have talked about political violence on this program. We've talked about ethnic violence on this program. We've talked about what violence can do to a nation. And that is why we don't witness for violence. We don't encourage violence. We encourage other forms of contestation, but we do not discourage protest and resistance.
We have another caller.
Caller,
Go ahead, caller.
come on.
Yeah, good night. I just want to say one thing. That the Guyanese people must not lose their faith and hope in Jehovah God, because Jehovah allows things to happen, but he is behind the scenes acting for our people. We have to just come together, every race, whether East Indian or black, and stand as one and fight against these people that are in government. Because number one, the police and the GDF, they have no calling to go and clean up Georgetown. It's totally disrespectful. But I want the people of Guyana to know that Jehovah is confusing them, and that's why they're behaving the way they are behaving right now.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Struggle without faith is less effective. And faith without struggle carries you thus far. So the call is right. We have to fight, and we also have to have faith. And we're in that season when the Christ child was born to bring the promise of revolution and the promise of justice to the world. Jesus himself was a crusader for social justice and social change. And wherever he met, wherever Jesus met injustice, he fought against it. Sometimes as he went into the church and he saw the gamblers, he had to physically get them out. The lessons of the life of the Christ child is something that we should reflect as we celebrate this holy period. We have time for a few more calls as we move into our Christmas period, and we take time out to be with family and to go to church and to reflect on the lessons of the birth of Jesus, and to understand that in periods of struggle, we should not separate our faith from our struggle.
We have
We
a
do
call.
not separate our faith from our faith. Come on, caller.
Doctor, good night.
Good night, sir.
I listen to you all the time. Everything that you say, you're on charge, and you're speaking the truth here. This PTP government, the regime, they do not respect black women. They do not respect black people. And we, the people, have to stay in the struggle. The struggle is far too over. Right now, God is confusing them. God is confusing them. That's why they are confused right now. And they're studying what next to do. When God sees it is enough, he knows what to do. That's why he is confusing them at this moment. But we got to stay in the struggle and send the pressure on them that they must respect the court and respect whatever the judge they rule and say. Nigel Garland is not above the law. Nobody's above the law. And I expect that some citizens supposed to take into court, because what the DP is doing, they're victimizing the black people then. The 7% that they gave them, the $7,000 out of a Christmas party that they don't want them to hold no party because of the COVID. But this is one big gathering around the place. It is seen all over that the PPP are running this big gathering around the place, and black people, the public servants, them cannot have a party among themselves because of COVID. And we have to speak out against it, and we have to stand up against it. And I hope my brothers and sisters them is see what is going on in the country, and they unite together, and let us fight together and get people out from office as soon as possible.
Thank you very much.
The guys people. And you have a good night and Merry Christmas to you, and long life and good health and strength to continue fighting the struggle.
Thank you very much, brother. Thank you very much. And we don't have to tell our people what's happening. We see with our own eyes, and we think with our own minds, and we come to our conclusions, and we come here to link our hearts and our minds so that we can get a better sense of our togetherness. Know that we are not alone. We're not alone. We're not alone. We have to stop. We have to stop this beast. We have to stop this political beast. We have to stop this political beast. Tomorrow night, Aubrey's going to be here, Aubrey Norton. I will have a one-on-one with him. The first time we're going to have him on as the leader of the PNC. He's going to be on tomorrow night, so you all come out in your numbers. I'm also going to have Stanley Ming, former PNC parliamentarian businessman. He's going to be on to give his take on the significance of Aubrey Norton's election as leader of the PNC. And then we're going to have Aubrey on with a one-on-one. So make sure you all go to town early, do your shopping, and come home in time for us to give a warm and resounding welcome to the new leader of the People's National Congress. Look, on the opposition side, like all other political sides, we have our disagreements. I do not see things the same way as Aubrey sees things. There are lots of things that we agree on, but there's some things that we don't necessarily agree on. And so it is with the AFC leaders and our brothers like Mark and Rickford, who are working in the vineyard, even though they're not in political parties. We don't see eye to eye. We don't have to agree on everything, but we can have mutual respect for each other. And you, the people out there, have to urge us to, in spite of our difference, to hold a common ground against the PPP. The only way we can stop them is not as individuals or as individual parties, but as a united front with a phalanx of you, the people behind us, as we face the mad and hungry dogs, cowardly pack, as our brother poet, Claude McKay, Jamaican and Caribbean poet, puts it in that everlasting poem, if we must die, then let it not be like hogs, hunted and penned in an inglorious spot. And for their 1,000 blows, let us deal them one dead blow. What though before us lies the open grave? Struggling with our backs to the wall, but fighting back, fighting back. And that's all we are asking here, to fight back, to fight back. And fight back doesn't always have to mean violence. In fact, you can fight without violence. The violence is the violence that is coming from the state. Are there any more calls? If they're not, I think we're running very close to program time. I see my sister Dory in the audience. Dory, you're not coming home for Christmas, sister. Miss you. We miss you. Dory Thomas from my village, Buxton, who comes home and does a lot of community work in our community, silent work. Sometimes you only see what the politicians do, we don't see what our ordinary. The PPP's bullyism must come to an end and not go over to the new year. Sheila George, thanks Sheila for expressing those sentiment, your sentiment. You see, since Mr. Aubrey Norton won the PNC, there's a lot of money promise coming out. They're all over. They're giving this bonus, the bonus, the bonus, the bonus, and so on. They think if they fling a little penny around us and so on, they're going to cool us down. No. It's, what they're giving us is what is our money, but we deserve more than that. We deserve more than that. Because they're not being fair. And if they're not being fair, then we have to push them to the point where fairness comes to the fore. Remington says, Mr. Hinds, it means that it's time to get action seriously. So we have myriad views expressed here, but they all point to the one thing, and that is a sense of optimism as there is a change in guard in the largest opposition party. The rest of us in the smaller parties have our work cut out too. That everything cannot be left to Norton and the PNC, that the other parties, but you've got to empower all of us. So you've got to empower Aubrey and the PNC, empower us in the WPA and the AFC and so forth, so that we can play our role too. So, thanks again for coming through with us. And I'm going to see you tomorrow evening. I'm going to see you tomorrow evening if for whatever reason you're not able to join us, let me wish those of you who are not going to be able to join us, Merry Christmas. And next year, we know it's going to be the year of change, the year of the turn, as an old poet put it. So thank you for staying with us, and thanks to all the callers. And I'll see you all tomorrow evening. Aubrey Norton, one-on-one, and Mr. Sandy Main.
Please help keep Politics 101 on social media and broadcast television. If you are in North America, please donate via Cash App or PayPal.
If you are in Guyana and the Caribbean and don't have access to Cash App and PayPal, email your pledge to dhinds6106@aol.com and we will direct you how to get your donation to us. Thank you in advance for your donation.